Welcome to the Sunday Night Health Show. Maureen McGrath hosting this program for you. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. In this hour, we have lots to talk about. We're going to be talking about something we don't talk a lot about, but we might feel and think a lot on it, sexual tension, and then also couples communication and some of the unhealthy ways, like the silent treatment that we bestow upon our partners out there. But first and foremost, I am joined on the line by Dr. Tomi Mitchell, because we are going to be talking about empowering lawyers, doctors, and other professionals to reduce burnout. She is an MD, wellness and performance, and she also talks about mental health. She's a speaker and a coach. She's all about burnout prevention and leadership development, and she joins me on the line now. Good evening,
Hello.
Dr. Mitchell.
Good evening. I am fabulous. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. That's so great to hear. Burnout, something many of us, present company included, have experienced.
Yeah.
So you focus mainly on lawyers, doctors, and other professionals reduce burnout. Why this particular group?
Because I think that's a group that has prided itself personally and professionally to be almost untouchable. Like, you're supposed to be put on this strong front, and there's high expectations for you. And there's also fear that showing anything but strength may impact your profession, your work, hireability, et cetera, et cetera. But even though I do focus on professionals, I have clients that are, not none of the above. So, but I definitely want to reach out to the physicians, the lawyers, other working professionals, because that's where I've been. Like, I am a business owner. I've had a few businesses. I'm a physician. I can understand what it's like working in a high-paced environment.
Oh, absolutely. And it can be so stressful. And I know, I've worked with a lot of physicians. I've worked with some lawyers, but, physicians, they have secretly, told me about the stressors and the challenges. I worked with one physician who'd had a tremendous trauma, if you will, a personal trauma, and it involved his work, and they were going to retire. And very early, and I said, why go out on a low note? Why not go out on a high note? Take some time off. He was very depressed. Said, take some time off, recover, heal, and come back. Don't let the judgment of other people who don't even know the story influence your life. And, he did come back and ended his career a few years later on a high note. But, he was ashamed. He told me, I'm so ashamed. He was crying, sobbing to me. I just want you to describe what burnout is for people. How does that, is it the same for everybody? How do we define burnout?
So burnout is more than stress, because we all experience stress, whether it's, you lose your job, a flood, or let's just distress, or the eustress. The good stress is to get married, have a baby, which are all good things, but they add stress. Burnout is so much deeper, and it impacts many areas of your life. So the textbook definition is a psychological syndrome where you have a response to prolonged, chronic, interpersonal stressors, whether in the work, whether at home, et cetera, and it leads to overwhelming exhaustion. Like, you are done. There's no more, fifth wind or sixth wind. You're done. You might feel more cynicism, right? And detachment. Think something that you normally love, it's now a source of pain. And as a result, you feel a lack of accomplishment because you once prided yourself on what you do, but it's no longer bringing that joy it once did.
I think, speaking from experience, I think it also impacts your sleep. You go to sleep at night, you wake up the next morning, you may have slept 8 or 9 hours, but you feel like only a minute has passed and you don't feel well rested.
100%.
I remember in my case, the doorbell would ring and it would just set off my entire vestibular system, it seemed. I just startled. And I just felt depleted. I felt, and it was a time where I was just giving too much of myself to too many people. And I just felt like it wasn't anything particularly bad that had occurred. But it was just, there were things, obviously, problems going on, issues, whatever, issues at work. But I also said, I will never have that again. I will never allow that to happen again.
100%. And, many people, when they think of burnout, they think of it just being the job, but it's so much more. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I like to look at 3 levels. There's the personal things going on in your life, right? Your health,
Mm-hmm.
your coping strategies, your family, and all those relationships. And then in the workplace is the teams you're on. If you're on a team that is highly critical, micromanaging, unreasonable expectations, like gaslighting, problems with, discrimination, whatever it might be, that is a factor. And then you put the system. So if the whole macro ecosystem is dysfunctional, as many healthcare providers feel the healthcare system is dysfunctional, despite them eating right, exercising, sleeping good, they are fighting an uphill battle. So it's really important. There's 3 levels to look at, because so many times leadership says, here's more resiliency training, here's more resiliency training. Sometimes that's a slap in the face of the employee who's like, no, I am resilient. But the problem is the leadership. The problem is the mission, the culture of this organization is toxic. So it's so complicated in a way, but it's not just the individual. We have to look at the bigger picture, and that goes back to my passion: is a holistic approach to life, a holistic approach to burnout, right?
Absolutely. That was my issue. It was actually a workplace issue, and it was a toxic culture, and everything you described in there with the micromanaging and the criticism, and it was brutal. We have way more toxic cultures in the workplace than we realize. And so, I hit 2 more after that first one. The first one was a shocker. The second one was a surprise. And the third one I saw long before and was able to leave, leave before it did any damage. The second one didn't do any damage either, because I'd already had that experience, and I was so protective of myself, of my emotional health and my mental health, that I just thought, oh no, I see what this is. And I happened to document everything, and I did actually sue the second one, which leads us to the lawyers.
Yeah.
who are, to be honest with you, that wasn't the greatest experience either. I mean, it was fantastic. They were initially great, and then at the end, it was like depleting or disappointing, because the lawyer, they force you to settle. None of these issues go to court, and I didn't care about the money. I didn't want any money. I didn't want this person to do this to other women again after me. And then you're forced to sign an NDA, and so it's it's also, but you have to move on. You have to move on from it. But at the time also, you have a life, and you have your family,
responsibilities and bills,
responsibilities,
and
exactly, and relatives, and parents and kids and in-laws and dogs, and so much is going on, and it was just overwhelming, which I think is burnout.
Yes. And, you mentioned a really good point in how you managed your second case. You basically created boundaries, right? Like saying, this is my line in the sand. We're not crossing it. Okay. And you stood up for yourself, and you documented it.
Absolutely. And I mean, the one benefit that's come out of that is I share that story with so many people, and so many people will email me, call me about what's going on in their workplace, and I can recognize it so quickly. And we think in healthcare that it's not going to happen, but all of my experiences were healthcare. One was a physician. One was a physician who actually had, and you find out that you're not the only one. In fact, this particular person had applied for a position at one of the major health authorities, and when they applied, the posting came down because the women on the team actually said, if you hire him, we're going to quit. We're going to resign. So they had to pull the posting down. So these people that have these, toxic ways about them, that, promote these toxic cultures, they've been doing this for a long time. They hit a number of people.
Yeah.
But that's toxic. Just one way.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, the toxic work culture is prevalent in society. It is more common than you think, and it's not always as obvious as you think. But
that's right.
It's shocking how, well, it's not really shocking when I look at it, but initially it's like, oh my goodness, like why is this so bad?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I had a client recently, a patient, and they recognized the company they were working with. They recognized that there was a lack of integrity and, reconsidered whether they wanted to stay with that company or not. But this isn't the only type of burnout. I want to talk to you about, why lawyers in particular burn out, their stressors, and also does they celebrate a lot of their wins. And they all seem to win because they settle with one another. I often say lawyers are in each other's back, with all due respect to the lawyers out there, if there's any listening anymore. Ever
they
to
hang
me.
out and go golfing together. I've seen that.
Yeah, they're in each other's back pockets.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anyone that thinks that their case isn't going to settle is got another thing coming.
Yeah.
Yes. But they practice in a certain way. They're alone quite often. They work in solitude. There's a lot of celebration that goes on. There's a high stress, a lot, disappointment with the career. And then also physicians, how they have to be on. You mentioned that they have to be perfect. But I want to dive into that a little bit more when we come back after the break. My guest is Dr. Tomi Mitchell. We're talking about empowering lawyers, doctors, and other professionals to reduce burnout and overwhelm so that they can increase productivity in the workplace. I'm Maureen McGrath. You're listening to the Sunday Night Health Show. Welcome back to the show. Dr. Tomi Mitchell is my guest, and we are talking burnout and burnout prevention. She focuses her practice on empowering lawyers, doctors, and other professionals reduce burnout and overwhelm so that they can increase productivity in the workplace. Dr. Mitchell, thank you so much for staying on the line. How can people, especially in these high-powered positions, I imagine you see a lot of CEOs as well, how can they prevent burnout?
Okay, that's a really great question, and I'm going to try to say it in a few minutes because obviously I spend months and years working with people to do this. So you got to first start with yourself. Remember I mentioned the 3 layers. You need to be healthy. That means exercising, sleeping, having a good mindset, strong relationships with others, maintaining healthy finances, all those things in the wellness wheel. Okay, that foundation needs to be there. And then you have to have clear goals in what you want your work-life balance to look like, being reasonable, of course. If you're brand new at the job, to say you don't want to work evenings or weekends, you're the bottom of the total pole. You typically work those hours. And just having that self-reflection. I actually have a tool that I use. It's a high-performance planner. I have a lot of respect for Brendan Bouchard. He does a lot of work in this area. And every morning and evening, I evaluate how the day has been. Because the thing with burnout, it's insidious. It can kind of creep up on you. Like when burnout hit me, when I finally realized this is what it was like I was tired, exhausted. I was done. Just thought of anyone calling my name annoyed me, right? Like, Dr. Mitchell, like, leave me alone, please, for 2 seconds. But you have to be very aware, and you have to have a system in place to keep you healthy, keep you going, because our world is designed, corporations are designed in a way that would likely lead you to burnout. We are a society that values productivity. And don't get me wrong, I encourage people to be productive. However, I believe you can increase your bandwidth, aka increase the size of your cup, and it's overflowing versus half empty. So I take a different spin on it because I'm working with people who are driven, who, want to work, who love what they do. They love to contribute to society, but they feel like they're empty. Well, you can actually increase your cup, and the goal ultimately is, like I said, have it run over. Systems have to be in place.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And I imagine setting healthy limits and boundaries is important as well.
100%. That is really, really key. And
really hard for people to say no.
No is a complete sentence. Yeah.
It is. No is it's really hard, especially in those high-powered positions.
Yes. Well, there's a way in which I teach my clients how to say no that still sounds professional and gets the point across, So, if someone wants to give you another thing on your desk, dear such and such, I appreciate you thinking about me. However, my plate is really full right now, and I value time with my family so I can recharge. And there are certain boundaries I don't want to cross. so I can be the person I want to be at home and at the office. If there is something on my plate that can be put on hold so I can take on this task, what would it be? Right? It's like accepting
exactly.
that.
Excellent
right?
advice, Dr. Mitchell. Yes, it's excellent advice, but I've got to cut you off. I feel terrible. Quickly, best way we'll get you back. What's the best way to get in touch with you? LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn, Dr. Tomi Mitchell with an M, and you'll see my smiling face.
Yes, you will indeed. Thank you so much. We'll definitely get you back. This is such an important
100%.
subject. Been there,